This is a video directed to Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations. Yes. Hello, Wolfgang is my name. I'm born in Germany. I'm born in the year of 1995. And I can tell you something about Germany. In Germany, you have political parties, and you never can trust rather the Christian Democratic Union as well as the Christian Social Union and the Social Democratic Party and the Liberal Party. Those three parties you actually can never trust. You know why? Let's say talk about waterboarding. Waterboarding, it's a war crime. International. Yes, it is. And it doesn't matter how they waterboard human citizens. Yes? Doesn't matter if they put your head underwater or they force you in virtual reality movies to dive under the water. And when you notice it's time to get up, to get some fresh air, you never reach the fresh air. This is a military computerized torture the German Nazis did, And the question, where to start, it's very, very difficult. It's a long story, 3 or almost 4 decades of electronic torture inside the body using secretly embedded minds, brain chips, actually not brain chips, actually blind chips. They place blind chips inside certain kind of human. And then those blind neck chips, after they place that mind inside the body, as victim you don't know, because they did that secretly. That was the first crime done by German politicians. Yes. And the staff who place that thing inside the body, And then, after that thing is inside your body, they got a computer, a giant, which had a lot of storage, a lot of capacity. And then they dial that embedded chip. And then they build a non-stop wireless satellite connection to that neck chip. And once that connection is built, it's a non-stop connection, then they climb up through the spinal cord up in the brain cells, and then they calculated the entire nerve system and have access to the entire nerve system. And then they reach the brain cells as they categorize the brain cells in dates as like a computer. Of course those Nazis sit behind a computer and execute flexible software programs as well as non-stop, permanently software programs. And you know what kind of regions they torture after they were programmed? They start with the dreaming cells. They program movies and send the movies inside the dreaming cells. And they decide what kind of time, what time they're going to send the prepared movie. And then they stimulate it inside the dreaming cells. And you are the only one who knows about it as a victim. Exclude the Nazis who did that. Yes? And then you see horrible movies inside the brain cells. And they have two different kind of movies. One movie you just see. The other one is virtual reality. Your brain activity is connected, and then they're stimulated inside the dreaming cells. And that waterboarding movie was one of the type virtual reality. You know, you find yourself in a swimming pool, a normal swimming pool, like you have in the cities. You saw the swimming pool, and then you are diving under the water, and then you notice something while you are diving, a virgin fish. You watch that fish, you are interesting because you see that, a virgin fish, you know, and then you decide to get up, to get some fresh air, and then you start diving up. That swimming pool was only 4 or 5 meters deep. It's a matter of seconds, and you reach the air. And I was diving and diving and diving and diving and diving, but I never reached the air. You know? I never reached the air. And then I wake up. And my hyperventilation was like never in my life before. You understand? And those Nazi rats also have access to the sleeping cells. The sleeping cells. Yes? In 1993, that Nazi crew who ran that machine, they took the decision to start keeping me awake. At that time I was full-time working in Cologne for a Cologne company. Yes? And It started with 3 days and 3 nights. And after that I could sleep for 1 day normal, 2 days normal, but I wasn't unable to go to work after that 3 days and 3 nights. Torture. And in the year of 1993, 1994, 1995, 1996, every third or fourth or fifth day they start again, keeping me awake. Sometimes for 3 days and 3 nights, sometimes for 4 days and 4 nights. Yes. In 1993 they started. I lost my work. I didn't get, after 2 years, any kind of payment from the labor community. No. From the unemployment community. No. They torture me into social security. And that means they torture into starvation conditions. And you know why? I mean, that time in 1993, that was the first time I sit behind a computer and had access to the so-called World Wide Web. And that time, because the Nazis were torturing me inside the dreaming cells since 1987. In 1993 I had first access to the internet, and I started researching on all kind of different techniques which are able to reach the sleeping cells. You know, the sleeping cells. Because in 1991, when I was working in the morning, they stimulate me really into deep sleep. That was a process from the Nazi computer. They stimulate me into deep sleep. I was working on my working place. In the morning, I wake up, 6 o'clock. I had some breakfast. Then I sit on my bicycle, drove this few kilometers to my working place, and start at 7 o'clock working. And at 10 o'clock, about 10 o'clock, I get tired. You know, real tired. And I don't have any kind of resistance, physically resistance, to stop me from getting tired. It took between 10 and 15 minutes. Then I was there, at my working place, in the morning, in deep sleep. And again, those Nazi rats, the type of virtual reality movie, they sent at my working place a program movie which they programmed and sent that as virtual reality inside my dreaming cells. Can you imagine that? First they send you into deep sleep and then they torture you inside the dreaming cells. Yes? And that movie, that was a baby. I only saw 2 hands, you know, grabbing a pillow and stick a baby with that pillow. That was the thing I saw in that movie. Then I wake up. I notice I'm still at my working place. What the fuck was that? And suddenly I start crying because I saw how somebody killed a baby in that movie. Also weeks later, every time when I thought about that Nazi movie, start crying, I had tears in my eyes. you know, and because that movie was so scary, so ugly, disgusting, yes, I didn't notice the things which real matters. That there are existing computer Nazis who are able, or who got the opportunity or the legitimacy to stimulate me inside deep sleep. Sorry, I wouldn't accept that. You know, I went to the police. I asked the prosecutor for help, but they closed all cases. Also later, yes, because in 1996, that Nazi rats, when they started keeping me awake in 1993, in 1996, yes, that time was another torture already ongoing, you know. It was acoustic torture, where they can talk through a headset microphone and know precisely they talk inside your listening cells, which they also programmed. That way of torture was organized in 1993, after I went to the police and tried to catch those Nazis. And then they started keeping awake. And in 1993, there was another virtual reality torturing movie. And that was the original preparation for acoustic terror inside the head. Acoustic, you know. That was in 1993. And that was also in the middle of the night, that virtual reality movie. And they used my son. They used the image of my son Manuel that time. Manuel was that time between 2 and 3 years. They use him, the image of him, you know. And when they started torturing movie, we sit together under a railway bridge. No beginning, how we get there, no bicycle, we used to drive bicycle, you know, nothing. We just sit under the railway bridge. And then a train is coming. And the train getting louder, the volume, yes, the decibel, getting louder and louder and louder. And when it starts getting painfully, or uncomfortable, let's say, uncomfortable, painfully was later, I took my hands. My son was sitting on my chest, not on my chest, on my knees. And I took the head, pressed my finger to protect his ears, you know, and the train still were getting louder, 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 and I couldn't stand it anymore. It started getting painfully. So I pressed the head between the knees to protect my own ears. Yes? And the train is still getting louder. It was a maximum, I think, all the head smashing away. You know, you can't stand it anymore. And then the movie was finished, and you wake up. Yes? That happened in 1993. Yes? And in 1996, in February 1996, I found out what they did with that train movie. Yes, they had access to my listening cells and talk through the microphone inside my head. Yes, day and night. And during that Nazi rats were talking, they had again access to the sleeping cells, and they kept me awake while they were talking day and night until the coma. You know, these are the things you don't see. You don't see things which were in the past. You got to listen to the tortured people, because their motive is to kill the memory. They burn the memory away. You know, the thinking cells, because they spy in the thinking cells, and they win images out of the visible cells. And after, they take the pictures. They use the pictures. They use that date material and program movies, and then they terrorize inside the dreaming cells. Yes. And you know why the wicked coward Nazis kept me awake? Huh? Yes. Because people who are victim of technology like that, yes, they know precisely. Here's a normal worker, huh? He owns between 5,000 and 10,000 each month, German D-marks, when the time he is working, yes. But after that, when they took the decision to torture acoustic inside the listening cells and keeping awake, huh? And torture into coma. Huh? They know precisely. Those kind of people, they never have any kind of cash. They never can afford any kind of lawyer to defend their human rights against those war crime Nazis from Germany. You understand that? And there are more heavy crimes. They also shoot machine gun bullets inside the dreaming cells. Picture, photo album, you know, pictures. Yes, each picture is a shot in the head. Yes, they create aneurysm inside the head, brain bleeding. They did that in 1996, the same year when they also tortured me into coma. Those dirty Nazis.